Hello and welcome to Insights, the podcast with your host, Joe Parnay. Join me in this deep exploration of our personal journeys from ambition to meaning, where we stop living life fast and start living life deep. This is a journey of waking up and realizing that our lives have never been about us, but about others. True success leaves positive ripple effects on other souls. I believe that success needs to be redefined from our own personal ambitious endeavors to be redefined as the value that we leave and give to others around us. Join me now as we begin this journey to deeper connections, even more fulfillment, some fun, curiosity, life, love, and all good things. Your deeper journey from ambition to meaning starts right now. Hey everyone, it's Joe here. Welcome to Insights and welcome to episode 20. I really appreciate you joining me and loving the connection that this is creating. I've recently, just in the last couple of weeks, did some workshops for a couple of different groups that I've never worked with before. And it's just been an absolute pleasure and delight when people who I haven't met have shared with me that they've listened to an episode or 2 or 10 of my podcast, and people in audiences that I haven't met yet. So that's very exciting, and I love that. So thank you so much for your wonderful comments. I really appreciate so many of you who have gone on and given me 5-star reviews on Google. As I mentioned in previous episodes, it really helps the podcast get recognized online. And if you feel that this is of value and it can be shared with others, then I'd welcome that, of course. So thank you so much for your support. So here we are in episode 20, and I've called this, the most powerful force in human behavior. And what I want to specifically address here is that the most powerful force in human behavior is our identity. It's how we see ourselves. Our identity is our self-concept. It's a bunch of convenient assumptions that we've made up, our beliefs, of what we believe we are, who we believe we are, what we believe we're capable of, not capable of, what we deserve, what we don't deserve, what we're worthy of and what we're not worthy of, and so forth. There are aspects of our identity that are kind of sort of fixed. And by fixed, I don't mean fixed like in concrete forever, it doesn't change. But there are 2 aspects to our identity that there are actually with us at birth. And when I say at birth, not literally at the age of 0, but in those early stages of the first 7 or 8 or 9 years of living, when we're a kid, basically, these aspects of our identity are organically within us, genetically, I guess you could say. One of those is our values. And as you know, and as I've discussed in previous episodes, our values continually, organically evolve and expand and change. But we're born with a certain set of values. Values are not created through a list. They're discovered within us. And then we've got our personality style or our personality type. And we're born with a framework of our personality style or type that also evolves and changes. So when I use the word fixed, I'm using it with a big sort of inverted commas, but that is an aspect of our identity that we use to filter in the world and see the world the way that we want to see it. And that perhaps is a whole nother conversation for another episode, and we'll explore that at some point. What I want to share with you is how a lot of people suffer from what I call an identity crisis, and I want to explore that. So what I want to share with you here also is that I'm going to sort of like take many different roads that lead to the same point, and that is that a lot of contributing factors to anxiety and depression these days is because of an identity crisis. Now, just so I'm clear, I've got to be really clear about this. I'm not saying that identity crisis is the sole creator of anxiety and depression, because anxiety and depression is very complex and is very real when it's experienced by anyone who's experiencing it. I mean, it's awful, and it can be quite a dark sort of journey for a long time for some people. In many cases, it translates into an identity crisis. It's very difficult, guys, to be emotionally fit and emotionally healthy when we're not clear on who we are or who we want to be or what we stand for. It's very difficult, because then we'll start experiencing gross inconsistencies in our life, and gross inconsistencies really can drive us batty. And I've got to tell you that identity is the most powerful force in the human condition or in human behavior, absolutely, hands down. And the reason why I share that with you is because whatever we perceive our identity to be, we will do anything to remain consistent with the concept that we have of who we think we are. If we think that we are a strong person or a healthy and fit person, I'll give you an example. Like, an aspect of my identity is the health and fitness side of me. And I remain consistent with that, not robotically. And then by consistent, guys, I don't mean robotically perfectly. I mean in a very human way. There's a consistent theme of health and fitness in my life. That's an extension of my values. And that's a big part of my identity, if that makes sense. Loyalty is one of my other values, which is a big part of my identity. So I will do anything to remain consistent with those two aspects of my identity. I also pride myself on my humor, which is a very risky thing to say on a podcast like this. But I know that humor gets me a long way in life, like in terms of connecting with people and connecting with my audiences. And when I run my workshops, it's the shortest distance between all of us is laughter. We know that if you think about it, the people that you love the most and you are closest to, you laugh with the most. And the people that you are more distant from, you laugh with a lot less. Just try it on in your mind, reverse engineer it and try it out in your mind. Just think about that. So what I want to talk about here in terms of identity, so I'll remain consistent with that, and all of us will remain consistent with whatever we believe that we are. Now, if our self-concept is quite unresourceful and not that great, well, we're going to remain consistent with that too. And that deserves more than just a soundbite. Maybe we'll dedicate another episode to that part of identity at some other point. But what I want to talk about is this. I want to say to you or share with you, don't put all of your identity eggs in one basket. I'll say that again. Don't put all of your identity eggs in one basket. Now, what does that even mean? One of the reasons that people experience high levels of anxiety in their work, and there's lots of reasons, by the way, why people experience anxiety at work. This is not, where I'm going with this and with the solution I'm about to share, this is not the panacea to all anxiety, right? This is one road to anxiety. And if you can relate to this road and you're experiencing some pressure or uncertainty levels of uncertainty that you're not comfortable with or you don't like or that is unsustainable, then maybe this might help you. And in a lot of cases, people have put all of their identity eggs in one basket. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means is that they have completely and utterly defined who they are based on what they do for a living. That who they are is that pilot, is that doctor, is that trainer, is that whatever, insert role here, insert business owner here. And so what happens is if our identity is 100% or 98% immersed in one vehicle, like our career, and something goes wrong in that career where there's more pressure than normal, there's more stress, there's more uncertainty, then because we've associated our identity completely into that vehicle, all of the uncertainties, ambiguities, and pressures and stresses will be amplified because we're taking everything so personally. And that's because we've defined ourselves purely as what we do for a living or what we do to earn money or the skill set that we've created over all these years and who we believe that we are. Man, I'm speaking from experience here. I remember there was a few years ago where I was in a holding pattern in my career. There was lots of reasons for that. I've shared some insights on that in previous episodes. And in one of those periods of time, during that holding pattern, I know it was because I was falling into the trap of completely identifying with what I do for a living and nothing else, which is ludicrous. So what we need to do one of the ways to reduce anxiety in the work environment is to dilute our identity. Now, what does that mean? What that means is we want to start being more behaviorally flexible in how we see ourselves and start expressing who we are in different forms. And by different forms, I mean there's many different kinds of vehicles in human behavior, in the human condition. And in human behavior, a vehicle is not something that we take for a drive. It's something that we use to experience and express ourselves. So career is one vehicle. Our marriage, if you're married, is another vehicle. A close friendship of a very close soul buddy, great friend, is another vehicle. Different kinds of relationships are different vehicles. Hobbies that we have that are of intense interest that we just thoroughly enjoy doing is another example of another vehicle. And here's the thing. If you can dilute and spread your identity concept across many different vehicles, then you won't take things so personally in each of those vehicles because you're diffusing and diluting your identity into different aspects. So I'll give you an example. In my life, a big part of my identity, not it's like these are all parts of my identity, is as a runner. As a physical expression of running, that's an aspect of my identity. Another aspect of my identity is the role of father. Another, which I just absolutely adore beyond words. Then I've got the other role of husband, which I adore beyond words. Then I've got the role of trainer, coach, leader. That's another role that I adore. Then I've also got the role of being the best friend to my best friend. So does that make sense? Like I've named there, I think 4 or 5 different vehicles that I spread my identity in. So when things aren't going too well in one, I've got others that I can rely on. So in other words, when I started my business back in 2005, 2006, starting the coaching and training stuff, then what happened was I for the first time, I stopped being an employee and became 100% responsible for self-generating my own income. So there was lots of uncertainty. And the way that I dealt with that uncertainty is that I had my vehicle of running to look forward to every single week, 4 or 5 times a week. I had my my sacred how do I say this? With my marriage, like it was like a sacred cave is not the right word, but like a sacred nest or something that I could go to. And with my wife, with Silvana, I could talk about concerns or joys or stresses or whatever, and she would listen beautifully and support me. So support is a really, really important aspect of diffusing our identity across different vehicles. And so the more I enjoyed the more I allowed myself to enjoy my running, the more I allowed myself to be open with my wife, the more I engaged with my best buddy to share any of the stresses and or anything that was going on in my inner world, the more I could handle what was going on in the uncertainty of beginning a new career, running your own show, running your own consultancy, your own practice, or whatever you want to call this. So, but if I took my job extremely seriously and I identify myself purely as a human behavioralist and nothing else, then the moment things wouldn't work out, all those issues of stress, uncertainty, ambiguity, and pressure would be amplified times 10, times 50, times 100. So the trick to the game here is to spread our identity eggs across many baskets, as any good investment person says, So that's what I want to share with you today. I want to share with you the concept, the thought of how you can decrease your relationship or detensify. And if that's the word I've just made up. So let's just go with it because we all know what it means. We want to detensify. There we go. Detensify our relationship with anxiety in the work environment by spreading our identity eggs across different platforms. So let me just say it to you in another way. You've got to find a hobby, guys. And I've shared this with so many audiences and I can't express the importance of this. And I think I've spoken about this in previous episodes. You really need to find a hobby that lights you up. And you need to explore and try different things. There was a lady in an audience that I had. I can't remember which audience it was. I've had so many recently, which is just incredible. But in this particular audience, a lady was sharing with me how health and vitality is definitely one of her values. It's one of her priorities in life. And yet she struggles with motivation of going to the gym, and she really just struggles. It takes every ounce of her every morning to get herself up. My advice was really simple. Stop going. Find something that lights you up. Because when she finds something else, whether it's dance, whether it's swimming, whether it's Pilates, whether it's some other expression of physical health and fitness that sings to her soul, then she no longer needs to be motivated to go and do it. Because when we're doing something that is completely aligned to our values, we're inspired organically, naturally. We have the energy to go and perform that task. I don't need motivation to go running. It's funny in these running magazines when it comes to winter, how they have all these articles on how to remain motivated. It's like, that makes no sense to me at all. Because to me, running is a pure expression, in my world, the pure expression of health and fitness. It's not the expression of health and fitness for everyone, but it's mine. So I don't need motivation. It is something I look forward to with every fiber of my being. And it's the same with that lady. She needs to find something that lights her up. Now that's physical. You might be more musical. Maybe you've been saying to yourself in the back of your mind or in the depths of your heart that you've been wanting to go and learn how to play the piano. Maybe people like Billy Joel and Elton John have been inspiring you for so long that you've been full of excuses not to go and learn how to play the piano. Or whether it's guitar. I remember when we were in Barcelona in 2016, my wife and I, we saw this fellow in this old church, this amazing master of classical guitar. My Lord, he made sounds out of the guitar that I didn't know guitar could make. And he was so out of this world incredible that he was inspiring me to go and play the guitar. But I know that to go and play the guitar, I need motivation because it's not my natural expression of hobby. For me, my natural expression is physical. But for you, if it's musical, don't listen to me about the running. Go and find something that lights your musical soul. For some of you, you're into abstract art and into the vagueness and the beauty of all that. As you can tell, I don't know anything about art. I don't. But you might be artistic, and that's something that you can go and do as well. You might be, some kind of creative or some kind of magician. I don't know. There's got to be something. Everyone has got an intelligence within them that needs to be expressed. And when you've got a hobby that you're doing at least 3 to 5 times a week, it gives you something to look forward to. And looking forward to something like that is us living in hope. And by hope, I'm not talking about wishing, waiting for something. I'm talking about something to look forward to genuinely. Your identity is, part of your identity is immersed in that vehicle of hobby. And then you've got your personal roles that you play in life. And that's another aspect of your identity. And now suddenly you've got all of these other identity platforms or stages that when something goes wrong, not if, but when something goes wrong at work, there's more of you to handle it because you've got the support of the vehicle of marriage or best friend or friendship or relationship. You've got the vehicle of music or art or creativity or physical or intellectual, whatever it might be, that lights your spirits there. So how can you not feel good living life when you've got something to look forward to 3 to 5 times a week? I think it's amazing. So that's the advice that I have in terms of diluting our identity across the board, across many, many different vehicles. And I think that's a really, really important chunk of awareness to bring into your life. And I hope this is making sense to you. And if it is, and you're deeply resonating with this message, please send me a message or post something for me and let me know. But let me tell you guys, that's identity. It is by far the most powerful human behavioral force because we will do anything to remain consistent to what we believe and who we believe we are. So if you dilute your identity across many different vehicles, you'll be able to handle the pressure and the stresses and the ambiguities and uncertainties of life. Now, I've given a career example. I could also, go into each vehicle and have different crises in that. I mean, we could have a personal relationship issue. We could have a marriage breakup that we're dealing with. And if we've got various vehicles to express our soul, we can handle that better. It's not going to make it easier, but we can handle it more efficiently. So it reduces the risk of us suffering long-term from anxiety and depression. We all have depressing moments of ups and downs. It's just that some of us get stuck in the down for too long. And if we're stuck in the down for more than 4, 5, 6 weeks, it's really difficult to get out and we need outside help to get out. Does that kind of make sense? So, and if we're stuck in there for more than 8 weeks, we get clinically defined as depressed. I mean, it's just ludicrous to me. But anyway, the point I want to make is, and this is taking nothing away, that comment I just made about being ludicrous, that takes nothing away from the reality of what the experience of depression and anxiety actually is. So I'm just hoping that the angle and the perspective I'm giving you on identity here is something to think about. That if you have got all of your identity eggs in the one basket, then please make a conscientious effort to dilute those identity eggs, to spread the love into other vehicles that you can express yourself in. And now you've got many different behavioral and emotional platforms that you can sit on because there's always one aspect of our life that is more challenging than other aspects of our life. So there's so much more to be said about this, guys. But I hope just with the time that we've had today, and I like to keep these podcasts reasonably, around 20 minutes or so. So, yeah, I hope you found this of value today, guys. And if you have, please send me a message or post something on my Facebook posts in terms of the value that you found in this podcast. I would really love to hear your comments about how you found this episode. All right. So anyway, I hope this has been, as I say, of great value. Thank you so much for joining me again on this episode 20 of Insights. And have a fabulous morning, have a fabulous afternoon, or a phenomenal evening wherever you are in the world. And I look forward to reconnecting with you for the next episode. Thanks for now, guys. Bye for now. Talk soon. I'm Joe Pane, and you've been listening to Insights, the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you're thoroughly loving the journey of these messages, please feel more than welcome to leave a review. And be sure to leave a comment on what you've been learning and how useful this has been to you and how you've been sharing this with those around you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to being with you again very soon in the next episode of Insights, the podcast.